Welcome to day 4 of the Next Step series. Today, we're going to be breaking the skill bottleneck. So, as a brief recap, on day 1, we broke down what's possible with a bookkeeping business. We shared the different ways that you can build and why the scalable way is my choice. On day 2, we identified the 3 bottlenecks that hold bookkeepers back from starting or scaling, and we discovered which one or ones apply to you. Day 3, we broke down the 6 secrets to a simple and scalable bookkeeping business. We shared what you don't need and what you do, and why most bookkeepers focus on the wrong ones first. We mapped out the keys to actually making this dream a reality with your business, and we took a look at the behind the scenes of Life by the Books, my program to help you scale. Today, we are going to be revisiting the skills gap and why closing it is so important, including how to overcome imposter syndrome. We're going to identify the 3-step learning process to close the gap and consider 6 critical questions to help you determine if you're ready to become a bookkeeper. And we're going to take a look behind the scenes of BABS and its student stories. I'm going to show you exactly what we cover and show you what that looks like. And I'm going to answer some common questions about BABS so that you can make an informed decision about if it's right for you. So first, we're going to go through some key reminders. The best marketing strategy is being really good at what you do. It makes everything else so much easier, from how you talk about things in any marketing that you do to how you talk to potential clients, potential lead sources, and how you close your calls, as well as train your team and do the work so that your clients stay. But what happens if you don't know if you are really good at what you do? Then you stall, you fear, and your fear can be felt. It causes inaction. It pushes opportunities away. And even if you're lucky enough to land an opportunity or a sales call, it doesn't convert. Fear can be felt, and confidence is magnetic, and it's what closes. Another reminder is this question: is it imposter syndrome, or are you an imposter? Bookkeepers often think that they lack confidence and that they suffer from imposter syndrome. And you hear it all the time. It's all over the place. Imposter syndrome, just work through it. I don't think, especially in bookkeeping, that this is imposter syndrome. I think it's a skills gap because confidence is built on competence. And bookkeeping is not a fake it till you make it industry. Harsh reality? Maybe. But to me, it's an empowering realization. Because for a values-based person like yourself, the idea that you will mess something up is crippling. And it's because you care. And that's okay. That's a good thing. It's going to make you really good at what you do and serving your clients because you care. And you know that there is probably something missing. And that's what's creating the inaction. It's not delusional fear, it's awareness. And so being told that the cure to imposter syndrome is simply to do it anyway and deal with the fallout later doesn't feel like an option, especially when you're dealing with people's finances. By contrast, skills gaps can be closed. So the loop is done and you can confidently and ethically take action. Honestly, doesn't that instantly feel like the better option? Comment if it does. Like, yes, I want to close this gap. I don't want to push through. I don't want to risk it, especially if the first people that you're starting with are people that you know, but really with anybody, I'm imagining. I always do people first inside my business. So it's not like one person is more than the other. But the idea that you could actually hurt somebody by doing a bad job doesn't feel great. So skills gaps, while that might feel like, skills gap can be closed. So we're going to talk about how to close the gap in a 3-step process. And before I share this, I wanted to do I'm going to call it a quick backstory. I'm not sure if it's that quick, but it's the quicker version of the conception story of this program and why it took me over a year to even begin thinking about how to teach how to close this gap. So yesterday you learned how to scale. And you saw my program Life by the Books, which has been in existence since the end of 2019. That program was born after I grew from 5 to 18 clients. I went from the side hustler to the business owner once I decided and got clarity. So I was in momentum. I had Instagram. I was sharing about the process of growing my bookkeeping business, pregnant with my 3rd. And I had no intentions to mentor bookkeepers then, and certainly no intentions to teach the skill of bookkeeping. I was just being the bookkeeper that many aspire to be. And so bookkeepers began to follow. I could tell by their handles. And I got curious and I asked them why. My initial instinct was to remove my competition from my page, but instead I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, what is it that you're doing here? And what I found out is that most people at the time, they were looking like, how are you doing this? Right. And they wanted help with the obvious struggles, the finding clients, how to have sales conversations, how to price, how to quote, how to bill, how to do contracts, how to deliver the work, and eventually how to get support in your business. And so that's how Life by the Books was born. I'm like, I can teach this and I can teach this with a baby at home. This is easy. I can just talk to you and tell you what to do. And so we hit the ground running inside of that program, and the success stories were shared, and the stories spoke for themselves. So you can tune in to, I have that link of resources, and I'll link it up below this video as well. The original Bob Squad, at the time the program was called Booked Out Bookkeeper. So that's called the original Bob Squad. And you can hear their success stories. We were doing big things. We were quitting jobs quickly. We were surpassing six figures, and others were left on the sidelines. They wanted that success, but they weren't ready to act. And that's hard for me because the reason that I share this with bookkeepers is the genuine reality that I knew how lucky I was. I knew that my set of circumstances that got me out of corporate, where I wanted to go, but I couldn't see this path. I had no idea it existed. So for me, it was something that I really wanted to share. And especially in those days when my babies were so little and I was really in it. And I really empathized with what other moms were experiencing working corporate or just being home and not having enough income. So they were suffering from not having enough of both the income and the time. And I wanted to help them. And I genuinely believe that bookkeeping can be learned, but it has to be learned properly. So I was thinking, okay, you're telling me that you don't feel ready. Some people had degrees in accounting, but they didn't have the real world experience. Some had some experience, but they were afraid of what they might not know, afraid of going out on their own. And so I definitely believe that this skill is learnable. But it was like, how can I teach this to you? What path would I go down if I were doing it like starting over? And then it was, of course, like, how can I me in your shoes as wanting to start a business for business owners as a bookkeeper and wondering your skill, I need to make sure that I can ethically deliver on this promise, both for you and for the industry. I am a bookkeeper. I am a CPA. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you to do something if I don't think that it's going to actually work. If I think that I'm going to just pump out a bunch of bad bookkeepers, that's going to hurt the industry. It's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt me because I stand on my ethics. So I was like, how can I do this? How can I make this happen? And I ruminated on it. I really considered this. And finally, it came to me. And eventually, Babs was born. So, how I considered how you would learn was I thought about the path that led me to the skill set that I had. And it was a compilation of my education, which is an accounting degree and a master's in tax. My work experience mostly in the CPA firm. So that was 2 tax seasons. And then when I got into bookkeeping by myself, the late nights that I pulled, the research that I did, I'm laughing because my sleeves are rolled up right now, but the rolling up of sleeves and sometimes working until 3 a.m. figuring stuff out, I'm relentless because I know that problems, like especially logical problems, systems problems, they can be solved. So I get so hyper fixated, I have to figure it out. So to me, that's not work. It's like completion. I cannot give up. So I did pull 3 a.m. nights trying to figure some stuff out with clients. I got to breaking points in QuickBooks Desktop where I started and transitioned over to Xero, calling Xero on the phone and figuring it out until I had it solved for just the one client that I was transitioning in my own business. So it was the compilation of those 3 things: the education, the on-the-job experience, and then turning that into actually operating bookkeeping. So this is what I am emulating in the program. So the first step is learn, and it's mimicking my college education. I have a note here for myself to expand on that and what a college education is and isn't, just in case you don't have an accounting degree. But those of you who do have an accounting degree, please back me up in the chat, whether you're listening live or on the replay, and let those who don't have an accounting degree know that an accounting degree is largely a lot of things other than accounting. And that the accounting that you go on to learn in your many accounting classes are things that won't apply to the small business owner. You don't need to have governmental accounting in order to be able to do books for small business owners. While I think that there's value in knowing things like audit and stuff, I'm thinking about the other classes that I took, cost management, like all of these things, they're complex accounting issues and they're largely conceptual. You are getting no actual going into any software, looking at any tax returns. I have a master's degree in tax and I came out without looking at a tax return. I had to go to a CPA firm to start connecting the pieces. My master's in tax was largely law too, just so you know. And then there's just a lot of fluff in your 4-year accounting degree. But however, I did learn stuff, right? And I remember thinking, how can I teach bookkeeping? Like, how could I possibly teach accounting better than you learn in school? But I realized that I don't need to recreate this. And I thought about the things that really mattered, which once it boiled down was about one half of the intro to accounting textbook. So I decided not to reinvent accounting, but to go back to the textbook. And I was trying to find my physical copy today. I must have lent it to somebody, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. So accounting is actually the foundation of what happens behind the bookkeeping software, but it's not taught. If you go in to get your QuickBooks Pro Advisor or your Zero Partner certifications, you can get certified in these programs and still not have the understanding of what is happening behind the software. When you're coding a transaction, what's being debited and credited, you're not thinking in terms of debits and credits. And it makes sense that that would be missing from these programs because these certifications assume that you already know accounting, right? So you're not going to learn accounting outside of it, but you don't need a 4-year degree in order to learn one half of the accounting textbook. You can get this textbook and go through it. You do need to know if you want to really deeply understand, talking too much with my hands. If you do want to deeply understand what's going on, then you'll really want to understand debits and credits in the backbone of accounting. And I think a lot of us as accountants, even those who were corporate accounting, my debits and credits didn't actually get clicking in my brain until I worked at the CPA firm. I had a master's in tax, my CPA license, and I still didn't quite have this completely locked in. I got this down a lot by getting in at the firm and really looking and thinking through things. And then again, going into becoming a bookkeeper and a lot in teaching it to you. But it really helps. And when you understand debits and credits in the big picture, then you're able to see something that goes wrong, take a step back and think, hold on, what's supposed to be happening? What did happen? And how is that supposed to end up on financial statements? And then, okay, what must be going on in the software if you're seeing something else? So it's important that you understand this. And I think a lot of people, even those with degrees in accounting, may be lacking this. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Even with the degree in accounting, if you're getting confused in the software, you might not have it completely solidified. And that can be causing a knowledge gap. And that can be slowing you down. And it can make it harder to train your team because something you're fighting your way through, you don't firmly understand. So what we do in the Learn section is we go through that textbook together as if I'm your tutor. You read, then we discuss, and then we look at the old school textbook examples that are in the book, which are how these still are today. And they're very conceptual. And what I do inside of this program is I actually demonstrate the textbook example inside of Xero. And that's something no professor ever does. So already right in this first step, you're seeing how the concept of accounting plays into the actual practice of bookkeeping. So before, and then now I'm going to move on to the basics of bookkeeping, because in Learn, you're learning the basics of accounting, bookkeeping, and tax. So we just covered the basics of accounting, how we can really make sure that we understand that so that we understand what the system is doing, so that we can troubleshoot, so that we know how to get from A to B. And then the basics of bookkeeping. So before we get into action, which happens in the next stages, What I do is share the overarching concept of the bookkeeping process so that as I guide you step by step in the next section, you know what to anticipate and how it plays together so that I'm not just like taking you one step at a time and you don't know where we're going. It's like I'm going to show you our itinerary before we take the trip so that you have some checklists and some idea of what start to finish looks like. And that way, when we get into practice, it makes more sense. So then we learn the basics of tax because bookkeeping is needed to prepare tax returns. And it's essential that you do things correctly and set the tax preparer up, though there is a line of what you need to do and what you don't. I'm thinking of, I don't want to get too in depth on this, but these are things that we cover in my programs, which is what's your job and what's the CPA's job. And I will link below a resource for how you deal with CPAs. Sometimes they're just like mean, and that is to be expected. But again, even that, when you're confident in your job and how you're going to direct, then you're able to rein in the CPAs too. So you do need to understand tax. You should not prepare tax. That would be wrong. You don't need to prepare tax. I am a CPA that doesn't even do my own taxes. And I have 50 clients who are not bulking at this. It's all in how you lead. And you're able to lead better when you understand why you're doing things. And so understanding tax is important because bookkeeping feeds into the tax return. So there, you can't just say money spent is all an expense. That's not how that works. So we're going to understand that, and we're going to understand what people are paying taxes on, how that flows to whatever forms, but you don't need to actually prepare. You just need to understand. And then you know how you can lean on the tax preparer and how you can have conversations, what I call bridging the gap between your client and their tax preparer, so that you can put them to the tax preparer when it's a tax issue, which is actually what should be done. Tax can be subjective. Tax preparers and the business owners should make tax decisions, but you can facilitate the conversation, which isn't really that difficult. It's knowing what to say you should talk to the tax preparer about, which is what we're covering here, so that you understand without having to do. And here's the thing, tax can get complicated. It's what I don't like about it. It's why I don't do it or my own. It changes. It's so frustrating. And so that's why this program and my core client base, it's no coincidence that I choose the things that are easier, is centered around the clients who make it simple. Single owners, service-based in the US, where we know what we're doing. But I do explain why this is and the complexities that you avoid in doing so inside of BABS, so that you know where the line is. And if you decide that you're going to cross it because you have that skill set, you know where to go and to look up the resources that you need and the things that you should consider and ask yourself if you're ready for that. That is covered inside of the program too. So I'm keeping it simple, but I'm telling you why. Next, we move on to the shadow section. So this is mimicking on-the-job training, which is always done in the real world. And it's what a lot of people asked me for in the early days and still sometimes now. I've been asked if people can work for me inside of my firm for free to learn. Not only would that take me more time than it would buy me back, so the answer's got to be no on that, but it's not the right way that you would learn, because in the earlier days of my bookkeeping business, I didn't even train my team as thoroughly as I train in BABS. Now I put my hires through BABS so that BABS can do the work of the training, because it's better than what I would be able to recall on my own one-on-one. It's structured, it's organized, it's intentional. And that's because I was able to take that slow approach and design it myself once and then revamp it twice with a team of course designers, so that we're really combing through and making sure that this is a program that gets results and is taught in a way where people are actually guided to learn properly. We spent months and years mastering this program. I spent most of 2024 and 5 revamping this program that was revamped, finished in April of 2025. Like, what year are we in? April of 2025. Now it's done in a way that's going to be pretty timeless. I learned better ways to explain some things that I wanted to bring in. I wanted to clean it up and update the interface. But now, even though the dates will start to get dated, the process is timeless. And so that is a much better process than I could realistically pour into anyone one-on-one. Anyone one-on-one. That's hard to say, because learning is a process and it should take that organized approach so that you're not being told one piece. and then brought back for the other piece that I forgot I didn't tell you. It's very thorough. But learning and going through that process is important. And so this process, again, much better than it could be done one-on-one inside of the shadow section. So it's like you are right behind me. Like I picture you over my shoulder as I'm going through and you're seeing the whole thing. You're watching me have a mock sales call, onboard that client who's already got the business going, as they all do. I think I've taken on 2 people over the years who were brand new in their business. Everyone else comes to you after the fact. So you need to know where you start and how you deal with that and how you catch it up, right? And that's what we show. So you go through each individual step and you get to see it happen inside of the software. So I'm taking the data and I'm putting it in. I'm looking at Stripe and I'm exporting it and I'm putting it in. I'm categorizing it. I'm showing you how to reconcile. I'm telling you how to make sure your opening balances are there. You're tying to a tax return. It's all covered. So you're able to also take it one step further, and we give you all of the files, the data files that I was working with, so that you can take that into Xero to be mimicking what I'm doing as you go. So by this stage, you have gotten into Xero looking at the accounting textbook, and you're getting into Xero doing the shadow. It's hard to just watch somebody do work, even if it's a necessary part of it. A child learns a child learns how to tie their shoelace by being shown the technique, but it's practicing themselves that creates that mastery. And they don't get it right the first time. So it takes practicing. So this is a well-organized learning process that you go back to later to apply in this course in the apply section. And then also when you go in to apply it in the real world with your real clients. BAB students always tell me that they regularly refer back when these concepts are popping up or when they're onboarding, so that they make sure that they're doing it right and efficiently. You have it organized by each step to go in. So you're not just watching some long video of me doing it, but it's organized, and I'll show you in a minute. And then we get into the third phase, which is confirming your knowledge by putting it into action in the apply section. You get new mock data to follow the process on your own, implementing what you just learned. I call it the practicum. This is where you find out what you might have missed or kind of skimmed over or not really understood, and you may struggle through a bit to reinforce the concepts. It may come easily. I'm not expecting that it will. I'm expecting that you're going to go, what am I supposed to do here again? And then go back to shadow. This is going to expose where you need to reinforce. And then once you are done, what you do is you get your financials, and then you complete an assessment inside of the course that asks for your numbers from the financials that you prepared. Once you submit that, an answer key automatically unlocks. You get new videos that you didn't see before so that you can't cheat, so that you have to actually try. And you get to see then how I got to my reports using that same information, and you get a copy of my reports to compare. If you differed, you're going to be able to see exactly why and try again. And this is how the skills gap is closed, through learning, shadowing, and applying. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 6 critical questions to help you determine if you're ready to become a bookkeeper. So these are largely internal questions, right, for you to answer. So I would get out a paper and a pen and make some notes on your phone to answer them for yourself. Question 1, if I gave you a client today, how confident would you be that you could do the work or figure it out? You can rate that on a scale of 1 to 10. And then I'm going to share what some BAB students said. The question was, how confident did you feel in your ability to do the work of bookkeeping before and after? So on average, students rated themselves a 2.9 out of 10 before BABS and a 9.8 out of 10 after completing BABS. This is nearly a 3x in confidence. The most interesting part of this stat to me is that when asked in the BABS application, students rated themselves more like a 6.5 on average. So to me, that meant once they got into the program, they realized that their confidence was actually overinflated and they had a lot to learn. But then they closed the gaps, and now they feel very confident, backed by an experience that gives them more than just an idea that they know enough, but the application to prove to themselves that they do. The next question is, do you have imposter syndrome, or are you an imposter? This is for you to answer honestly to yourself. And here are what BAB students said about the program. No more imposter syndrome. Babs confirmed the things I already knew, then equipped me with so much more. I'm ready to take on my own clients. Now I know what I'm doing. I no longer feel like an imposter. I also know that I will always have Babs as a resource if I forget something or need a refresher. I'm not scared anymore. Thank you. And I needed a refresher on bookkeeping basics and wanted the reassurance that I knew what I was doing before I started my business, because confidence is everything. And the third question for you to consider is just, what is your educational and experience background? Most people have like either neither or one or the other. And either way, you feel like you're missing something. And here are what Babs students said, especially those who already had a level of background thinking like, am I still going to learn something? I think if you don't know, if you're missing something, you still have that doubt. And so even experienced students learned, and here is what they said. The accounting portion was the part where they were surprised that they still learned anything. Having an accounting education as well as working in the field, I still learned new information. I remember feeling surprised when going through the learn accounting section. You shared the information in a different way, which was simpler versus college. I swear college overcomplicates everything, which they do. I am working really hard to break down the concepts, show it to you in action, and explain how the concepts translate to the actual work that we're doing. And this third testimonial says the basics of accounting. Even though I studied accountancy, I learned a lot of things that I didn't understand in the past. Even for me, that was big. As I went through it, I'm like, "Ah, now it makes sense." And I actually enjoyed going through the textbook, and it kind of healed that part of me that didn't understand when I was going through. And the last one here is, I was surprised at how much I learned despite having an accounting degree. College taught me the accounting principles well, but every other part of the course, the basics for solopreneurs, navigating the client onboarding, the catch up, and bookkeeping technical skills was new to me. They do not teach this. They do not expect that you're going to come out and do books. It's completely not taught. And what they do kind of funnel you through is the process to become a corporate accountant or go work for the Big Four. It is not an emphasis on real world bookkeeping, especially for small business. Okay, so here is just more data about students who took it and answered this survey. Did you have any accounting education and or experience before joining Babs? We had a lot of people who had both. We had a chunk that just had experience, some with education, and some with neither. And the next question, we talked about this. I don't remember what day, but we definitely talked about how the way to be profitable is to be accurate and efficient. So efficiency is really important in your process because that's what protects your profits. So are you confident with your ability to work efficiently, not just accurately, but efficiently? And here is what one BAB student said. I wanted to learn how to use Xero and how to work efficiently with PayPal and Stripe so that I could be more confident working with online businesses and speed up that process. And this is another question. Are you comfortable having tax conversations with your clients? You can't avoid this. You cannot shy away from the conversation. You can't shut it down and just say, I don't know, every time that the word tax comes up. Again, there is a line where you are answering them confidently and where you know what can you help them with and what belongs with the CPA and confidently guiding them there so that it gets covered. So here are what BAB students said about this section. It feels much less concerning because of the course resource PDF that comes with BABS. I can talk about the tax basics for solopreneurs much more confidently, and I know I'm capable of doing the work. Next is, it's always nice to review the accounting and bookkeeping information. It further solidifies into my brain. Since I've worked in bookkeeping for a while, learning the basics of tax really connected so many dots for me about why businesses are structured as corporations versus other types. I was able to go back to my job and say, okay, I get why we do that now. And lastly, I work in tax, but I learned so much from the tax module about deductions. We really cover all of that because I incorporated the main questions that you're going to get, which was in hiring, in deductions, in what is taxed, in rough estimates and how you talk about that. And so we cover that because you will be asked. And I believe this is the last question. How valuable would it be to see behind the scenes of someone who does what you aspire to do and do it well? And here are what some students said when asked what part of the program stood out to you as an actual solution to your problem. It was to be able to shadow and apply at the same time in that section was worth more than the cost of the entire program. And this one says all of it. But if I were to choose one section, I would say the shadow section. I love how you recorded the process of an onboarding call. It was such a good example. This is a good thing because seeing how you navigate through it, how you thought through it, helped me to navigate my clients' situations. It gave me the confidence to ask questions to my client when before I would feel stupid for asking. I didn't know what to actually do when I got my first client, and this was the exact solution that I was looking for. And then this one says, Katie sharing how attainable this was and showing it to you. The bookkeeping demonstration where we legit walk through an entire monthly bookkeeping process showed me what it would be like and how easy it was to do. She showed us how it was possible rather than just saying that it was. And finally, the practicum. I'm a hands-on learner, so watching Katie go through everything and then actually put it into practice was extremely helpful and what I needed. And one more, definitely the shadow section and being able to watch Katie do the bookkeeping and learn her process. I think this is where other courses fall short. Now, I'm going to go into, I guess I'll go into showing you behind the program, and then I'm going to come to the frequently asked questions. So let me change my screen, unless I don't need to. I think maybe I don't need to. Oh, I do. Okay. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is behind the scenes of the program, and this is the course. So BABS is a self-paced program. You come through and you have your welcome module, you learn accounting. This is where you go through all of the different chapters, but you're reading it, and then what we're doing is deepening it. So this is where we're reviewing. You've read, now we're reviewing. And there are checkpoints and assessments between so that you're actually answering questions and making sure that you've got at least an 80% or more to move on so that you know what you're doing, so that you can get through and you're building without just skimming through. And then after we go through the basics of accounting here, we go through the whole tax portion. So you're able to see what we're talking about, like how to lean on the tax preparer, the two main ways that solopreneurs are taxed. We do an assessment on that. And then we go over the deductions, employees or contractors, owner pay, and estimated taxes. And then you do your assessment. Then we go over the bookkeeping process in the learn section where you're learning what this looks like. So the exact step-by-step to getting started. And then we go into shadow. And like I said, this is broken apart into different steps so that if you have somebody who is doing PayPal, you're able to come right into the PayPal section. We also cover payroll really well. So we tell you how you get payroll in. This is a common area that bookkeepers mess up where they code the full amount to payroll expense, and it needs to be broken out into wages, payroll tax, and it needs to be the payroll tax to the business that is considered a deduction. So this often gets wrong. So we show you how to do it right and how to follow the process, not just integrate, but understand in case you have something that doesn't allow an integration because your clients may work with different payroll providers. So you're able to go into every single step, tying to the bank, tying to the tax return if there is one, running and reviewing the financial reports. And so then you've completed shadow and you move on to the practicum where you're given the client and the data, and then you go through these two checkpoints. One is asking questions to get the answers, and then one is actually putting in the numbers from your financials and getting those answers so that the answer key unlocks. And then you are complete. So I wanted to also show you the textbook because we are going through, this is what you need to know. So if you feel like, do I need to go back to college? Look, I'm not going to tell you not to go back to college, but you're taking the pieces of college that really matter the most. So if going back to college isn't something that you can realistically do right now, we're not skipping the education. We're just getting it outside of it. So we're going through a real textbook for these chapters to show what you really need to know. All right, so back to the questions. This piece is going to be a little bit big on why zero because I get asked this a lot and I think it's important to run through. So We all talked about efficiency before. And here's the thing, at the most basic level, the reason that I prefer zero, one of the biggest reasons, is that bookkeeping is what I call a game of clicks. So the fewer clicks that it takes to get from raw data to reconciled books, the faster and more profitable you become. And what I found is that what feels like it takes 3 clicks in the competitors takes one in zero. And that may seem small, but if you multiply that 3x efficiency over dozens of clients and thousands of transactions, and it adds up to hours or days of saved time and gained efficiencies. And it's not just about speed, it's also about a cleaner, more intuitive workflow, fewer errors and rework, and easier onboarding for your clients and your team. It has a better client experience when it comes to the reports that we're able to give. You can customize them. We're going to get into that in just a second. So I want to really show you one of my favorite features. If I had to choose, it's going to be cache coding. It instantly saves time and allows scalability because you're able to view hundreds or thousands of transactions on a single scrollable screen. When you're comparing that to QuickBooks, you're looking at a max of 200. If you're onboarding a client that may have thousands of transactions, you can imagine looking at thousands of transactions on one screen and being able to sort and organize that and click one button to clear through is a lot better than doing this with a 200 limit. That is a really big barrier. And once you create rules, you're able to speed this up even more. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like. This is like one client's cache coding, right? I'm scrolling through. Anything in this column right here that has something already there has a rule. So when I come in, I'm clicking one button that's going to automatically apply all rules, and boom, 356 records were automatically saved and reconciled based on that rule and how many items I was able to see on one scroll. Going back to this is just clearing what was there. You can also sort by the vendor and things like that. And with clicking and selecting down, you're able to batch through transactions so much faster. So the efficiency is absolutely there. And then if you have clients, a lot of mine use one or the other or both of these. And this is the reason that I switched to zero to begin with, was that Stripe and PayPal connect to zero as a bank feed, because the way that this information otherwise shows up is in their checking account in one lump transaction. As for here, for example, you would have, where is it? The payout. Maybe it's not on here. Oh, this might be a payout. Yeah, this is a payout. Okay. So you have the charge that your client received, the fee that was associated with it. This must be PayPal, and one expense paid. So this is Spotify. This is a fee. This is income. And this is the net amount that gets transferred to the bank. If you're not looking at it in this level, then all you're seeing is this money coming into the bank, and you don't know the breakdown. So you've then got to find that. If you're a bad bookkeeper, you're going to put all of that to PayPal income, and you're going to have missed an expense. This has the potential to be a personal expense. And if you are doing this without a feed, you have no way to create these, which are rules on them. So this is a really big deal. And PayPal does connect in QuickBooks, but not as well as it does in Zero, and Stripe does not connect as a bank feed in QuickBooks. And so this is a major inefficiency. When you have Stripe connecting as a bank feed, this is where you're dealing with thousands of transactions, where you're able to give your clients their income by category, break out the actual expense, and then mark the money going into the checking account as a transfer instead. So it gains efficiency and accuracy massively. And you have a find and recode feature, which is great too. If you make a mistake, if you used an account that they now want to change, you're able to search for parameters and recode right here. So this is a really great way to have efficiencies as well, and customizable reports. So you're able to run your reports all together. What we provide our clients is the income statement, the balance sheet, a cash summary statement, and their transactions. And we can pull this in one report so that we're not running 4, we're running 1. And we're able to customize our income statements to show formulas like profit percentage and tax savings and things like that. Things that we used to do outside of the books before we realized they could be built into formulas. So that makes it accurate and it makes it efficient. No error in typing, and gives our clients these valuable insights. You might not be providing this today, or if you are, you might be calculating this manually. And then you're wasting time and you're giving yourself a risk of error. It looks beautiful on Zero. Another really big reason for me is no bad guesses. So QuickBooks will like assume that a transaction is something and they can be absolute garbage. And it's hard on your eyes where you're choosing to click. I've had myself as orderly accounting show up as gas. How? It's $400 even. Like, where are you even coming up with that? You know, but it'll suggest that. And if you're not paying very close attention, then you can accidentally code something wrong, which is bad. So Zero doesn't make guesses, which means that it can't make bad guesses. So you can set up good rules instead. So like I said, it's better looking, it's easier on the eyes. The reports can give the same amount of detail, but just look better. And this is not the main thing, but it is cheaper. So as of the time of this training, the partner plans start at just $10. So you're able to pay $10 for what they might be paying $75 for on their own. And that's a big savings because if you're considering yourself as the group, that's $65 lost, right? So this is $65 that they could be paying you or $65 that they could be saving, making your fee sound better. So that's just one of the reasons. You also get partner perks. I don't want to go too deep into that, but once you reach certain levels, they give as much as $2,000 a year in advertising reimbursements. It's like a 50% thing. So you have to spend up to $4,000. But if you're going to do something like redesign your website and things like that, they can give you a credit for that. I make sure that I max that out every year. And I'm not exactly sure what the range is on that, but if you do transfer over and sign up, make sure you're taking advantage of it. If I'm selling you on Zero right now, and you're not going to end up going to Babs, or even if you are, make sure that you go through my link that takes you there, which is at katiefarrow.com/zero. That is a referral link, and it gives me some credit for sharing it with you. So I would appreciate it if you were to do that. And you can also sign up and get yourself an account now for free. They are regularly changing like what it takes to stay in the partner program, but you can use that when you're ready or now to start dabbling. So again, in summary, it's an easier, faster workflow. It's a clean and intuitive interface. It has better client-facing reports, making your deliverable look better. It has real-time data access and scalable pricing and support. I kept getting asked, how do you wow your clients? It comes down to giving them reports that look good and are understandable, and that's easier done in Zero. I don't do a ton of above and beyond, but I do what I do well. And Zero helps me do that, which is why I largely run my business on it and why I recommend it and why I decided, even if you know of the name QuickBooks, and even if your clients know of the name QuickBooks instead, there is a better alternative. That's why I use it. And that's why I teach it. Okay. So I get asked this question all the time, which is like, what if my clients have never heard of Zero? It's a fair question. Because when you're making a change, you making the change, it's easy to start worrying that you'll have to convince everyone else. But the truth is that your clients aren't hiring you so that they get to choose the software. They're hiring you so that they don't have to. So it's your job to be thinking of what is the best tool that allows me to do my job for them, to give them a good product, to keep the cost down. And this is the answer. So if it works for you, then you just have to lead that conversation and you let them know, like, this is what we'll use as long as it makes sense, right? As long as it actually is the solution that's right for them. Then you lead and they will follow. I don't have trouble getting my clients to switch to Zero. I may have had 1 out of 75, you know? It's just not a common thing because I'm convicted, because I know that it's the right tool. And so there's no problem. I just tell them what we're going to do. And that's the answer. All right. And it leads into the next question, which is, does this translate to QuickBooks? Like, I only know QuickBooks, or I have some experience in QuickBooks, but I do want to know, like, can this translate to QuickBooks for my client? And 90% of students, when polled, said yes. So especially in the learn section, there's nothing in there that is Zero specific. We show the example in Zero, but you could get to the same example in QuickBooks. So what you're learning is translatable, and you would be able to take the knowledge of the bookkeeping process and just be clicking in a different spot inside of QuickBooks. So you can take that knowledge and you can transfer it. But instead of showing you 2 tools, we're showing you one, and it's the preferred tool, the thing that I think is better. All right. Another question that I get asked a lot is how long does it take to go through the program? So we've estimated 40 to 60 hours, and within it, you have two recommended tracks. One is 6 weeks and one is 12 weeks. If you already have an accounting degree, a lot of people go through that much faster. And so they're getting through that piece faster. It also depends on how much time you have per day to give to it, and it can be paced however you want. So you can go through it faster or slower. I do know of people who have gone through it in a week, and I know people who it takes longer, but you're able to move through it when you can. Oh, this question. How do I know if the investment is worth it? So the current prices are available on the sales page. You can just scroll down to the bottom. I say that just in case the price changes. And then the question to ask yourself is how many clients would it take for you to make back your investment? And the answer is really just one. So Babs teaches you the skill and Libby helps you turn it into a business. So Babs helps you close your skills gap to get really good at what you do, which is the best marketing strategy. And it is the seed that can turn into a sequoia and the foundation that you can build your business on. And it's worth asking is like, do you have that efficiency, accuracy, and competence today? Oh, this I'm like laughing. These are old Q&As as I'm going through it. What if I invest in Babs just to find out that I already know it? I think that is a common hesitation for people who have more experience. And with over 200 students in Babs, I've never heard anyone say this. And you will likely find even just one thing that you didn't know, but chances are it's going to be a lot more than that. And this is the value that you can bring is understanding that you are ready. So if you felt like you weren't, and then you were able to find out that you were, even if you learned nothing, which is unlikely, that would be worth it because you would be ready to go into action and that seed of doubt would be gone. So how do you know if you're ready for Babs? The main signal that you want it is you have any doubt that you're capable or in your skills or in your efficiency, or if you're missing something to be working better and faster. It's not just about your education and experience, it's about how you feel. So here are some transformations. We've condensed the transformations, the before Babs, the problem, and the after. So before Babs, what were your desires before joining? I wanted to learn how to actually do bookkeeping and be good at it. Not knowing how to do it was holding up the potential of my business. I wanted to be confident about it too, and this would bridge the gap. And then the problem. What problem were you facing before joining? I started the business before knowing the skill. Also, being a college kid, I was thinking about how to afford it financially. And then after Babs, expand on how that problem feels now. I don't feel like I have a problem anymore. I'm not a bookkeeping expert in everything, but I know more than I did before, and people can see it based on how I show up. I've made more income in my business, and it's covered the cost of Babs. I can't believe I just said that. And this is another case study where the before is, I honestly didn't plan to become a bookkeeper until I heard about Babs and found out about the industry and the potential. The problem was a lack of passion, fulfillment, and joy with my 9 to 5, wanting something more in life. And then after, it's no longer a problem for me. I took the leap and built my business and now work for myself. I'm building a dream business in life and I'm very proud. And finally, the before Babs. I had a bookkeeping background, but had never worked with small business owners of zero. I hoped Babs would confirm what I knew while also exposing me to new software and connecting a lot of the dots for me. The problem was imposter syndrome, not feeling like I was ready to take on an actual client. I had taken another bookkeeping course, and while it taught me a lot, I didn't feel 100% ready to take on a client on my own. I was done. And then after Babs, my imposter syndrome is almost gone. With the help of Katie and joining Libby, and most importantly, learning what I learned in Babs, I felt I could take on a client right after. Since then, I've been growing my business. And now for the fast action bonus. When you signed up for this event, you received a fast action bonus in your inbox. So make sure that you have checked for that so that you can take advantage of it when you decide to join and that you don't let it expire. The thing about this program is it is always enrolling, but this offer will expire. And to summarize, to determine if you're ready to become a bookkeeper, consider elements such as your current confidence, your background, and your technical skills with bookkeeping, and your comfort level around certain bookkeeping topics. Again, the main signal that you need Babs is if you have any doubt that you're capable or have the skill. Babs is the program that will teach you the technical skill of accounting, bookkeeping, and tax so that you can be more confident in your ability to grow a bookkeeping business because you'll know you have the practical skills to back it up. And if you're thinking, wow, that's awesome, but really, could it really work for me? If you're still experiencing fear, doubt, and scarcity, then tune in to day 5 to find out how to break the belief bottleneck. This can be one of the biggest ones standing in the way. Thank you.